Welcome to our webinar today, How Your Workflow Improves Your Bottom Line by Dick Dubois of BlindSpot USA. My name is Ryan Kauf and I will be your host today. I direct the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, at UW Green Bay. The Wisconsin SBDC at UW Green Bay is part of a statewide network and national America's SBDC network supporting entrepreneurs and small business owners through no-cost, confidential business advising, and targeted educational programs. Regional SBDC experts facilitate improvement and growth for small and emerging mid-sized companies and help launch successful new enterprises. The no-cost business planning and low-cost workforce leadership development training at the Wisconsin SBDC at UW Green Bay is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration, or SBA. Our website is uwgb.edu/SBDC. Today we continue our 2015 monthly no-cost 30-minute topical webinar series designed for the success of small business owners and their executive team members. At the conclusion of this webinar, we will share the upcoming webinar topics, and we encourage you to consider registering for those. We thank Mickey Noon and Chad Van Andel from First Business Bank for their partnership in promoting these monthly webinars and for their dedication to small business success. We also thank Michael Wentworth and his company TMR Associates, the B2B appointment setting company providing qualified leads and market insights. We thank them for their partnership in developing these webinars. After the webinar, you will be emailed a link to a recording of the webinar. And during the webinar, you are invited to ask questions at any time. Please use the menu along the right side of your screen indicated here in the red circle. Type your question and hit enter, and as soon as I see it, I will make note of it for the presenter to address toward the end of our webinar. And now I'd like to turn it over to our expert presenter this month, Dick Dubois of BlindSpot USA. Dick?
Thank you, Ryan. It's good to be here again. Today we're going to talk about something that's very common in medium to large businesses and often is overlooked in small business. In fact, very seldom, working with many small business owners, when we bring up the topic of workflow, they look me deer-eyed and say, what's that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. First, this work is primarily from Michel Strom. I work with Michel on many projects. He is an expert in workflow and enterprise systems. He was not able to be here today. He's traveling overseas working with other clients, but he'll return very soon. This is myself, Richard Dubois, Dick Dubois of BlindSpot USA. BlindSpot is a development and training company. I work with many small businesses that are very focused and looking forward and often don't see things in their blind spot. One of those things is definitely workflow. We bring it into focus and we show how it actually affects daily business activities and how to improve efficiencies and remove roadblocks from day-to-day activities. The first thing I want to do is talk about what is workflow. And if we take a look at this definition, a workflow consists of deliberate and repeatable patterns of business activity enabled by systematic organization of resources into processes that transform materials, provide services, or processes of information. I know that definition is a mouthful, but if you boil it all down, whether we're actually handling a day-to-day task in a cleaning and restoration company, or we're a sales organization calling on clients every day, it is definitely a pattern. It's also systematic, and we use resources inside of our own companies to execute these tasks and processes. Down below we have, it is depicted as a sequence of operations declared as work of a person or a group, an organization or a staff, or one or more simple or complex mechanisms. Mechanisms is a big word, looking at that. What we really mean is processes and tasks. I want to start here by actually showing you an example of workflow. Whoops. No.
Stop touching my knocker! Hi! What can I do for you?
I'm here to save you money on power today, sir. You interested?
I am not!
I'm Steve.
Turn around and walk away!
We have a deal today.
Remove yourself from my veranda!
Who's in charge of the house?
I'm in charge of the house! Why would you think I'm alive?
You're a door knocker.
Walk away! Remove yourself, beauty mortal! Away with you and your plastic clipboard! Leave now and forever! Walk on!
Now, I know you're probably sitting there going, how in the world is this workflow? Well, if you take a close look at the young people that are actually approaching this door, they're young and they're actually in a training program. And they're training to become not afraid of going door to door and knocking door to door. This was actually discovered on another workflow. This company likely had a workflow all spelled out, and it was a very well planned out sales process, how they're supposed to dress, how they're supposed to approach the home, what they're supposed to be handling. And going through this workflow, they were looking at the actual results at the end of the workflow, and their conversion rates were very low. And they were scratching their head and they were wondering why. Well, while they were interviewing some of their salespeople, it became evident that there was fear and they were afraid. And if you approach anybody, even a home, and you knock on your door and you're afraid, your confidence level isn't high, your throat cracks when you speak, and this exercise was to remove their fear. Now they're not afraid of anything. So we have two workflows happening. One is the workflow of the sales process that identified the fear, and then a workflow in training where they took them through this process intentionally to get them used to being barked at and eventually removing their fear. Workflow. Workflow is business process automation. Workflow involves the interaction of people, and now we're going to introduce computer-based processes to support the workflow within an organization. Now, what is this starting to get into? We have wonderful tools out there. Email, in different methods of reaching clients, and we can use this computer-based process to actually send an email or actually use the computer to create a snail mail, which is standard mail, and it would be mailed or emailed to that possible client before the door knocker actually shows up. So they're warmed up a little bit. When this becomes part of the workflow, not only their fear has been removed, but there has been a notice to the prospective client that somebody may be coming. They can be actually ready for them. Workflow is an enabling technology designed to support the coordination of business activities to achieve business goals. Again, we're going to take a look at a workflow in just a minute, but what its intention is to enable us, the business owner, to know where we're starting a process and where we're going to end a process. It will actually give us the ability to measure our results at the end. That happened to me yesterday. That last slide actually said your company operates by putting in place processes. And that's very interesting because we often hear the term, that's the way we've always done it. Well, in business today, the way we have always done it is evolving almost every day because we don't have a standard called a workflow to actually follow. When we have that workflow, we are able to see roadblocks ahead, and we're able to see the stumbling blocks ahead, and we can eliminate those before we go out and execute the process live. Here's an example of a workflow. And this workflow was both computer aided and people aided. And this is where, if you look at the gray box on the left, it says propose 1 free month free trial on an on-demand offer. The on-demand means we can have it right now. Now, this free month trial actually went out via email, and this email invited them back to the website, and then they were able to either look at a subscription, and if they were not interested, we just said thank you for coming. If we offered them a proposal to subscribe and they were not interested, and that's on the bottom left, we said thank you. But if it goes to the right, it says, here's the proposal to buy the book. If they're not interested, up on top, it's, if they bought the book, it was thanks for buying. If it goes to the diagonal, it's a proposed free technical training to gold partners. And then if it went to the far right, it was a proposal for a paid training with silver partners. And then eventually on the top right, it says, thanks for subscribing to the technical training. And then on the very far right, on the bottom, it says a proposed gold partnership to silver partnerships. So they actually elevated up. That's where we wanted them to be. We wanted them to become gold partners, and it all started with a proposal of a free month trial on an on-demand offer. Now, I want to make an analogy because I work with a lot of companies, and I often ask, do you have an org chart? It's about 50-50. An org chart is just a plan or a path of the positions in a company with their descriptions that'll be described later, but it gives somebody a visual look at the structure of the company. A workflow is similar in that it gives you a visual look of the process that we have in place. Now, earlier, during the little movie that we played, there were 2 workflow processes happening there. One was the actual sales process, which was a workflow, and the other was a sales training process, which was a workflow. All of them can have measured results at the end, and that's the big importance of a workflow. All businesses, both large and small, have processes in place that run their businesses every day. We all have them. The question is do we actually ever visually look at the process? which would be a workflow that's documented on a piece of paper. Your company operates by putting in place processes, which are workflow. The question I have is are they documented? Have you looked at them? Why implement workflow? Number one, processes get outdated as your business grows. Often, companies don't change their business processes. Over and over and over, you hear things like, that's the way we've always done it. Well, if you really take a look, unless you're very fortunate, your current processes do not match how our prospective customers want to interact with you anymore. And there's many examples of that. One, we may used to, get in our car and go drive to our client and have a conversation or take an order. Well, now with the speed of the internet, they may just want an emailed order form or an online ordering form. That would be an example of changing the process. Designing workflows forces business to examine and understand the processes and help them find areas that can be improved. When you can actually see it visually, you're able to see those roadblocks. Workflow will bring efficiency and automation to the business process. Again, now, instead of doing things the way we've always done them, there's new technologies, there's new efficiencies that we're able to use that will bring more automation and better efficiency to our workplace. Workflows, the last one says, workflows provide good reporting metrics. We call them key performance indicators. And I want to give you an example of a key performance indicator with Facebook. A key performance indicator that your Facebook is working is called a like. It's how many prospective customers actually like you. It's not an activity that usually does not generate revenue. It just gives you an indicator of who's looking at you and who actually likes you. That would be a key performance indicator. Right here is a workflow on a sales order. It's much more complex, but it starts over on the left where we have the draft. And the draft will either, if you follow it around and follow the arrows, it can be canceled or it can be sent. From the sent, it can go to a router. From the router, it can go to a hold on shipping, or it can be waiting for an invoice. Then it can be shipped. But then there's a shipping exception, and then we can end the shipping. But all of these items that are in place are what happens in this particular company. And where it started was over on the left in the draft, and where it ended was on the far right, on the bottom right-hand corner, where it says ship cancel. Well, that's one of the ends. The other is right above it, where it says invoice cancel, and above that is the order is done. And that's a word that we're all looking to do when we're in the beginning of an order to a delivery of a product. We want to start with a draft and we want to finish it being done. Again, looking at a workflow is kind of like looking at an organization chart. Where are the paths of transaction that got to be completed in order to make a transaction happen? The bottom line, this is one of my founding principles. If it isn't in writing, it isn't real. Oftentimes we can be in meeting rooms or sales rooms and we can be talking about the processes, and oftentimes you don't get really anything done because one person's going to do it one way, one person's going to do it another. Now let's face it, if you have a sales staff of 12 to 30 guys, no two are going to do it the same way, but they really should adhere to the workflow. And I think if you actually document your sales workflow, you will find that most of your salespeople do follow the workflow. It's just their own personality and style that allows them to do some things a little bit different or say things in a little bit different way. It's difficult to change a plan if it isn't written. Once again, when we have a workflow and you're able to look at it and you're following the steps of the workflow, it's very difficult to change it if you can't visually see it. Processes that happen every day in business, you really can't see them unless you document them and put them on a piece of paper. It'll allow you to see the bumps and the roadblocks and eliminate them. Back to the video and back to that company, they identified that their staff, their new staff especially, that was walking door to door had fear. And they had to take and recognize it at that point. And when they did, they made a correction by putting them through the exercise that was shown on the video. If you actually document your workflow, you will be able to make small changes for huge efficiencies. There's many that come to mind, but again, if we stay relating to this presentation, if we can eliminate the fear of your new salespeople in some way, then you will be able to make that small change with huge efficiencies and much better results. Removing roadblocks and efficiencies, and improving efficiency, will impact your bottom line. Your conversion rates will go up, your average tickets will go up, your number of calls made in a day, whether it be door to door or on the phone, will all go up. If you're looking for more, I welcome you and I invite you to contact Michelle Strom. Right there is Michelle's phone number at 920-264-9474, and his email address is mstrom@officeeverywhere.com. Again, my name is Dick Dubois. I'm with Blindspot USA. My email address is dickd@blindspotusa.com. Thank you so much for sitting through, and if you have any questions at all, please submit them. Otherwise, feel free to contact Michelle, and you can contact me, and if I don't have the right answers for you, I will refer you back to Michelle. Thanks, and have a great day.
Dick, thanks so much for the information you've shared. I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, and I think you touched on this in the beginning of the webinar, one was, what is basically central to workflow? You mentioned customers, and that's the question, but is it really customers that should be central to workflow, or is it that great answer of it depends?
No, everything in workflow eventually points directly at how the customer interacts with your company. And everything that we do is for the customer. So whether it's an order coming in or it's them receiving it, the process in the middle is all about workflow. I have to mention there's some very fabulous companies out there. Schreiber Foods is one of them. They are the masters of workflow. Their employees understand it. Their customers are the benefactor of their fabulous service.
Thanks,
There's
Dick.
many more.
Thank you.
You bet.
Another one is basically, it's kind of that typical, how do I start? My guess is you start by what you said, kind of mapping everything out. Is that what usually works with your clients?
Yes. When we're working with a client, once they do it once or twice, they get it and they call us with finer questions. but you start with a pencil and a paper and you draw your first circle. And your first circle, is it that order coming in? And then the last circle is the order going out. And then drawing circles in matching or pointing the arrows to where they go, and really taking a look at how you're doing it. Each circle represents a process or a task, and the arrow points to what is the result or the key performance indicator from that task. So it's a matter of just getting out a piece of paper and drawing it. And if you're not feeling comfortable the way it's coming out, give Michelle a call.
And then last question, Dick, and you don't have to be real long on this one because we've only got about 2 minutes, but in your experience, what are some common roadblocks? And I'm guessing you get this is how we've always done it kind of thing all the time, and not everybody in the organization's on the same page with understanding workflow, but I guess what are some common roadblocks so that people on the call or people who are going to watch this as a recording can kind of shake their head and understand that, yes, this is my experience and this is what I'm going to experience.
Okay, I'll do this really quick. If you had a salesperson that's been calling on clients and maybe has 30 clients, and they call on them on a daily basis, and they finally call this one and said, hey, do you need anything? And they say, yep, I need X, Y, Z in so many cases. And they prepare the order, and it gets sent in, and all of a sudden he gets an email back to him saying, these people are 30 or 90 days past due, do not ship. So we have a roadblock right here because the salesperson wasn't able to see on his screen that this client was 30 days past due or 90 days past due. So instead of that call being a sales call, it should have been a collections call. So the roadblock is, and the way we've always done it is, let the salespeople sell, let the accounting department do the accounting. But when we brought it together and we made a correction, the salesperson was able to see that it was 90 days past due with his new screen. He could now see that. So he now has a different purpose. But the roadblock there was that we had we didn't have the right information for the salespeople. So we changed the process so he was able to see some accounting records so he could now know, why am I calling that client?
Great. Dick, thank you. Great example, too, of something you wouldn't necessarily think is a roadblock or a common roadblock in workflow, but that's a great and a very relevant example. So again, Dick, thank you very much.
You bet.
Our webinar next month features Jerry Baltus, who will present how to harvest maximum value from your business. Then in December, Don Niskowiak will discuss how to use benchmarking to increase your business value. You can register for our on-site workshops, virtual certificate programs, and all upcoming no-cost webinars at uwg.edu/SBDC. We also have several past webinar recordings there on sales, marketing, business ownership, and leadership. In closing, I would very much like to thank Dick Dubois of Blind Spot USA. Dick, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mickey and Chad at First Business Bank, and Michael Wentworth of TMR Associates. And thank you all for attending. Now, go improve your workflow to improve that bottom line. This concludes our webinar. Have a great day. Goodbye.